For over 2 million years, a cave was the safest place a human could be. No rain, no wind, no wolves circling in the dark, just stone walls that had stood for millions of years before you were born. Somewhere between 20,000 and 10,000 years ago, humans walked out of the caves and never went back. And the reason has almost nothing to do with what most people assume. Let's start with what a cave actually gave you, because it's more than just shelter. A cave holds a constant temperature year-round, often somewhere between 10 and 15 degrees Celsius, regardless of what's happening outside. In the Ice Age, when the world outside could drop to minus 40 degrees Celsius, that alone was the difference between living and freezing to death overnight. Archaeologists studying sites like Lascaux in France and the caves of the Dordogne Valley found something else too. Caves weren't just shelters. They were archives. Deep inside, protected from weather and light, early humans painted animals, handprints, and symbols that have survived over 17,000 years untouched. Nowhere else on Earth could a mark last that long. In fact, some cave art sites go back even further. At Chauvet Cave in southern France, paintings of lions, rhinos, and horses were dated to roughly 36,000 years ago, meaning humans were creating detailed, layered artwork inside caves for almost twice as long as modern civilization has existed. Whoever painted those walls wasn't just hiding from the cold. They were building something permanent, something meant to be seen by people not yet born. So if caves were this good, why did anyone leave? The first reason is brutally simple. There weren't enough of them. Archaeologist Paul Mellaz, who spent decades studying Ice Age settlement patterns, found that usable caves are geologically rare. Not every mountain range has soft limestone. Not every valley has the right kind of erosion. As human populations grew, band by band, generation by generation, the math stopped working. You cannot fit 50 people into a cave built for 15. And this wasn't a small problem. Population estimates for Ice Age Europe suggest human numbers may have grown tenfold across certain regions between 30,000 and 15,000 years ago. Every generation, more people needed shelter, and the number of caves stayed exactly the same. Stone doesn't multiply. People do. The second reason is one archaeologist's only pieced together in the last 40 years. Caves don't move, but food does. For most of the Ice Age, humans followed migrating herds, reindeer, bison, mammoth. A cave near a river valley might be perfect for years, while herds passed through it seasonally. But climate doesn't stay still. As the last Ice Age began ending around 15,000 years ago, temperatures shifted, vegetation zones moved, and entire migration routes changed within a few human generations. A cave that once sat beside a herd's path could end up 200 kilometers from the nearest food source. The stone stayed. The animals didn't. Think about what that actually meant for a family. You wake up one season and the reindeer simply don't come. Not late, gone, rerouted entirely by a shift in vegetation you can't see or understand. Your cave, the thing that kept you alive for a decade, is suddenly just a hole in a mountain with no food anywhere near it. And this is where it gets interesting, because this is exactly when we start finding something new in the archaeological record, the first constructed shelters. At a site called Dolní Věstonice in the modern-day Czech Republic, archaeologists uncovered the remains of huts built around 26,000 years ago, using mammoth bones as structural framing, with hides stretched over the top. These weren't caves. Humans had figured out how to build their own shelter, wherever the food happened to be. The scale of this is easy to underestimate. A single hut at Dolní Věstonice could require the bones of several mammoths. Skulls stacked to form walls, tusks curved into arches, ribs used as roof supports. This wasn't a temporary lean-to. It was engineering. Someone had to plan the structure, source the materials, and coordinate a group large enough to move mammoth bones that could weigh over 90 kilograms each. This single shift changed everything about how humans lived. A cave is fixed. You go to it. A hut you carry the knowledge of and rebuild wherever you need it. For the first time in human history, shelter became portable. Not physically, but as an idea, a technology that traveled with the group instead of anchoring them to one spot. But there's a third reason, and it's the one that gets left out of almost every textbook. Caves were crowded with more than just people. Cave bears, cave hyenas, cave lions, an actual species, larger than modern African lions, that specifically denned in the same limestone caverns humans wanted. Fossil evidence from sites across Europe shows layers of human occupation directly on top of layers of predator occupation, sometimes separated by only centuries. Humans and cave lions were, quite literally, fighting over real estate. At a cave site in Romania, researchers found the remains of over 140 cave bears in a single chamber, evidence that these animals used the same shelters for thousands of years, generation after generation, long before any human set foot inside. When early humans finally did move in, they weren't discovering empty real estate. They were evicting tenants that could weigh half a ton and had claws built for tearing through hide and bone. Living in the open, by contrast, meant you controlled the terrain. You could see a threat coming from a distance. You weren't sharing your home with something that could kill you in your sleep. There's also something else that changed, something almost nobody talks about. Light. A cave is dark. Even with a fire going, most of a cave interior stays in shadow. Vitamin D synthesis, which requires direct sunlight on skin, would have been a real limitation for people spending large portions of their day deep inside rock shelters. Communities living in open-air settlements had far more consistent access to daylight, for warmth, for visibility, and for the biological processes that a body simply needs. So the picture becomes clear. It wasn't that caves got worse. It's that everything around humans changed faster than caves could keep up. Population, climate, prey migration, competition with predators, even something as basic as sunlight. Humans didn't abandon caves because they failed. They abandoned them because humans had become mobile in a way caves could never be. And this single shift, from fixed shelter to portable shelter, is arguably one of the most underrated turning points in our species' history. It's the moment humans stopped adapting to the land and started making the land adapt to them. Every tent, every house, every city block sitting on flat land that was never a cave. All of it traces back to a handful of humans standing outside a mammoth bone hut 26,000 years ago, realizing they didn't need the mountain anymore. It's worth sitting with that for a second. Somewhere, a group of people looked at the safest, most reliable shelter their species had ever known and chose uncertainty instead. Not because the cave betrayed them, but because they'd found something the cave could never give them, the ability to decide where home was instead of the land deciding for them. We didn't leave the cave because we outgrew shelter. We left because we learned how to bring it with us.